Earthbound Beginnings is way better than Earthbound. Yeah, I said it. What are you gonna do, Internet?
I miss you.
You're probably thinking that I'm just saying that just because Earthbound Beginnings finally came to the Wii U Virtual Console after it was originally supposed to come here before the first Earthbound game, which we know is the first Earthbound game, but it's really about Earthbound Beginnings, which is the first Mother game. Motherfucker. Now, Earthbound as a series as a whole isn't really all that different when you compare the gameplay styles because they kind of have the same look and feel, kind of like Peanuts. The games deviate, however, in both plot, characters, and the climax, even though they both have that same feeling that makes you want to cry at the end of the game. However, me personally, I'm too manly for that shit. It's just a game, people. Some people really take on that heavy weight of emotion when they play through a game with a very epic story, and that's where Earthbound lacks. It suffers from too many plot conveniences. The story goes a lot like this. Meteor conveniently lands about around the corner from Ness's house, and after going to bed about 7 times, the neighborhood kid actually conveniently goes out and gets lost, and you gotta go find them, and then you investigate the meteor where they conveniently were hiding near, and conveniently a buzz come out. People believe that this is the protagonist from the last game. However, I don't know how he's a bee from space in the future. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. And then that space bee tells you that you are the chosen one destined to save the world. And I just say, why? Why do I gotta get off of school, go out, save a little girl, get like 2 other guys in my party, conveniently to save the world from an entity that I have nothing to do with? I mean, I like getting off of school, but for real, I gotta go and fight a bunch of police officers? Yeah, it's kind of weird how that has some real world context right now. Where the prequel actually has a backstory before the story actually really begins. The protagonist's grandparents inconveniently got abducted by aliens, and through the motherly love of his grandmother, one of the aliens inconveniently begins to feel emotions for her. You know, something that they're not supposed to do. And then something bad happens to her. The husband ends up escaping, and because of his escape, the aliens come to Earth, setting the plot of how Earthbound is supposed to begin, hence Earthbound Beginnings. Lol. And because your grandfather left you notes in how to actually defeat the aliens that are actually coming, that's what designates you as the protagonist. Ninten has to go out and discover his legacy in order to prevent an invasion that was started decades ago by his own flesh and blood. That gives me incentive as a player to actually see how this game will end. A lot better than telling me because I'm the chosen one and that I have to. No, I want to do this. That, and I don't want to end up with an alien probe up my ass. But do you get my point? There's a sense of mystery in Earthbound Beginnings that you're trying to discover, whereas in Earthbound, there isn't. So score 1 for the prequel. Now let's move on to the characters. And I'll already let you know, for both games, the characters are flat as hell. Even the secondary characters are more interesting. But the protagonists have their traits, such as Ness being homesick and Ninten having asthma, which affects both protagonists in battle, giving us the illusion that this shouldn't be the guy, to go out and save the world. But he still does it, which, is awesome. So they pack up all their shit, go out and save girls, branding them as heroes, as well as mama's boys and asthmatics. However, Ninten one-ups the Ness. He meets Lloyd on top of the roof after being scared off from all the kids picking on him. In a trash can, no less. Now, instead of saying, "P.U., you stink, go kill yourself," Ninten goes, gives him some bottle rockets, and befriends him. And that's how you get a permanent party member in Earthbound Beginnings. And that's when being friends plays. And that's what you do. You make friends. You're not just meeting people out of necessity. The way we meet Juff, his Earthbound counterpart, is because we ran out of options. Ness and Paula are just traveling along. Oh, should we go get Jeff? Nah, fuck that guy. I know-it-all douchebag. We'll call him when we need him. Probably hanging out with all of his queer friends at school anyway. Freaking hate Jeff. Freaking douchebag. By the way, I'm speaking as Ness because I would never call myself a douchebag. But the point I'm making is the characters come because the plot says so, not because we are introduced to these characters and we do things for them that make them want to join our cause. In Earthbound, your next party member is pretty much met the same way because he's just there, to be there, to fill that empty empty slot. Whereas in Earthbound Beginnings, you don't even need to recruit anybody. You could beat the game with just Ninten. And maybe Lloyd. But we recruit Anna because she wants to see her mother again, and she wants to figure out where did she went. And Teddy doesn't really have a cause for joining us. However, he believes that his parents were killed by mountain creatures, which will probably give him incentive to go to Mount Yatoi to kick some Mook Mook's ass. Oh, Mooks. You guys were so overpowered. It felt like I was fighting a boss fight every random encounter I got into on Mount Yatoi, the final section of the game. In contrast of Earthbound, however, part of the character development for Ness is for him to go to his own magic camp and actually get a super awesome power-up that makes him overpowered for the rest of the game. Matter of fact, all of the characters are actually kind of OP'd by the end of the game. Even freaking Jeff, who can use those multi-bottle rockets that annihilates enemies. Whereas in Earthbound Beginnings, you gotta work for that shit. I mean, to just get out of your front door and not being killed by any of the enemies in front of your house, you gotta grind, you gotta develop. You actually gotta push yourself as the player and the character, which is what establishes more of a relationship with them. You get a little bit of help from a robot very, very late in the game, but you still had to work for that, which gave you a better feeling and a better payoff. Whereas at the end of Earthbound, you become robots, which reflect the levels that you grinded for. But at the same time, it just makes me wonder, plot-wise, what was the point? Like, if our bodies aren't even gonna be used in the final climax. So another point goes to freaking
Earthbound Beginnings.
I liked it a lot better when it was called Earthbound Zero. And finally, to wrap up this comparison, we're gonna compare the climaxes of the two games. Because you can't have a good story or a good game without a good climax. You can't have a good anything without a good climax, for that matter. I'm looking at you, Sex. Now, in both games, you are tasked to collect 8 melodies, for very different reasons, for that matter. In Earthbound Beginnings, you just collect them because you're just collecting them at first. You don't really have a reason why. But then that's when you end up going to Magic Camp, and that's where you meet Queen Mary, and she gives you the incentive of finding them because she is currently ill. So you're taking the time out of your busy schedule saving the world, helping her out with her own dilemma. In turn, helps you out in the final dilemma. I'm not gonna give anything away, but let's just say that, okay, goddammit, everybody knows that the fucking end of the game, you're gonna sing the damn melodies that you learn, but that's what makes Earthbound Beginnings special. What you're doing is contributing to the finale. Whereas in Earthbound, you're collecting the melodies to buff up Ness. Seriously, once you collect them all, he ends up going to his own magic camp in his mind, and then he conquers evil. And that makes him stronger, but then it doesn't really take us to the final antagonist, and we use that strength to defeat him, because I think everybody knows that the ending has Gygas at the end, and we all know how he's being defeated. But the point of the journey was to get the experience and really learn from what we were doing to help our cause, which on both ends was very important, because in Earthbound we wouldn't actually be able to save the world without traveling it and meeting the people that we meet. But I still gotta give this to Earthbound Beginnings, because what we were doing was not because we have to do it, it's because we wanted to. And because of that want, because of that curiosity, that helps us in the end, which is why at the end of Earthbound Beginnings, it feels so much more impactful when you are finally defeating the final boss without using any force at all. Whereas in Earthbound, you're gathering the 8 melodies to make yourself more powerful, hence, using the force. But that force wasn't used on beating the bad guy. You had to praise Anna just so you could see him taken down. And that is why I don't like Earthbound. It's kind of slow in the beginning. It kind of takes a little long. The characters are flat without any motive to what they're doing. And to be honest with you, I kind of like the music a lot more in Earthbound Zero. They didn't even use the on-it music from the actual game that it's from. They used Being Friends, the game that came out before freaking Earthbound, that came out only in Japan, so we didn't even freaking know about it. But that is how I got into Earthbound. It's because I wanted to actually learn where this music is from, because playing the actual game didn't even give me that experience. But now you can do it too. Go out there and enjoy Earthbound: The Beginnings, now on Wii U. Enjoy this infomercial. Or enjoy this episode like it's an episode of sequel. I don't know how to fucking pronounce that shit. Damn it, Ego Rapper. Point is, freaking Earthbound Beginnings is better than Earthbound. And like I said in the beginning, what are you gonna do, Internet?
Everybody stand back. Oh boy. Okay.